And opening the show is Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and Tama Tonga taking on Roman Reigns and the Usos. So the way this is, it's 3-on-3, though Tonga Loa was in the corner of the Bloodline.
Mm-hmm.
Reigns and Jimmy enter together. A thunderous reaction follows for Jay's entrance through the crowd. You have to look at the audience on this show. Like the early days of these Saudi cards in the beginning of this deal, like the atmosphere was awful for some of these shows. And that is the complete opposite. Like this crowd was just so energetic and lively for 3.5 hours. And it was like, this was like a big time atmosphere that they had for this show, and it kicked off with this Jey Uso entrance that was pretty spectacular.
I thought one of the best crowds of the entire year, and I don't know like what sort of necessitated that, or at least like what created that sort of change compared to maybe some of these earlier shows. Are they letting in different types of people into these events than they were in the very first shows? I don't know, but I could definitely say like there's been a bit of an evolution in these Saudi crowds where now they're at the point now where they're clearly diehard fans that are in there. These are the people that know the words to every single word to like a Randy Orton song or to a Cody Rhodes song, and they reacted massively, and I think helped positively color a lot of the presentations of these matches. I think it's notable that we saw Jey Uso come out last here. That's not typically how things went with the Bloodline. That never is how things went. So I think it plays to the story. It's good attention to detail for the story that Roman is allowing main event Jey Uso to enter last.
Yeah, it's kind of a compromise where Jay has said the three of us are now equals, whereas Jimmy's like, I'm okay being, Roman's
I'm not
sidekick.
really at that level yet.
Yeah. So the crowd is vociferously chanting for Roman, and Jay teases tagging him, but instead tags Jimmy to prove who's in charge. And this leads to an argument among them as Tama Tonga capitalizes, and they had the heat on Jay. And then finally, Reigns is entering, and he is in with Solo Sikoa, and they start battling. And Reigns calls for the Superman punch, but it's caught by Sikoa. Second attempt hits the Superman punch, and as he sets up for the spear, Solo Sikoa kicks him in the face and hits the Samoan spike. And Sikoa gets on top of Reigns, and the referee is counting, and Jimmy is way late for the save. And like Ryan Tran just has to hold up his hand because Jimmy was nowhere ready to break this up. And what we had was almost a replication, at least in theory, of what we just saw with Christian Cage and Jay White, where the actual finish of the match was going to be done as a near fall earlier. Because this, and I'm sure that this was the confusion, was, okay, the Samoan spike is the finish, and it seemed like it was just too late for the save to be made, that Roman was to be saved here.
I mean, in this case, I don't know if it was so much confusion on Jimmy's part. I mean, I have to assume Jimmy knew that the bulk of the finish hadn't occurred yet. It just looked like he might have got a little bit tripped up in the ropes, but certainly he looked a little bit late, I think we could say.
It's a lot late. This looked a lot late.
A lot late, yeah.
And this was an extremely forgiving crowd because 90% of crowds would just so heavily boo this spot. Like we don't get "you fucked up" chants anymore, but we definitely get audible boos when it's a clear like mistiming on a kick out.
I would say like it did take the crowd down a notch though coming off of this, because I think it at least dampened a lot of the maybe rising momentum, heading like building up throughout this match. There was this was a big fuck up, unfortunately, and you always feel bad for the referee in these situations, but like the edict or whatever unofficially is that the refs should count as if they were legitimate. What the fuck was this referee supposed to do in this situation? Okay, this is Roman Reigns. All right, in the main event, he would have gotten heat if not like okay. So if he didn't count it, I'm sure maybe he's getting
in this case. It actually is like had he just counted it legit, it was actually what the finish was. So I mean, it's rare that happens.
But you'd be counting Roman eating one Samoan spike rather than Roman eating a totality of 3 Samoan spikes, which would have had him chewed out maybe from other people. Like maybe Roman would have been really mad at that. So this guy Ryan Tran really had nothing like a split-second decision to make, and you can't really fault him for doing either one.
The referee is always in like the unenviable spot where he's either going to be the fall guy in any situation, no matter what you do. So then they try and get things back on track here. Jay and Fatu square off. There's super kicks sending Jacob out of the ring. And then Jay goes for a suicide dive. It's caught, and Fatu headbutts him, and that's about the last we see of Jay. And there's a Superman punch to Sikoa. Then Reigns throws Tongaloa into the ring, landing on poor referee Ryan Train, who's just having a hell of a night. And Reigns gets struck by Fatu, hit by the springboard moonsault, and then there is a dive by Fatu onto both Usos on the floor, and Reigns, selling the effects of the moonsault, gets hit with 2 follow-up Samoan spikes, and Solo pins Roman at 16 minutes and 35 seconds. So it ends up being the finish that was teased several minutes earlier and giving a dominant win for the Bloodline. We'll get to the post-match after. I did not think this was a very... Like, it was an engaging match for the audience. It had a lot of star power, but in terms of a match, I mean, this did almost nothing for me. I just found it to be very slow, very much just reliant on a lot of just signature spots, teases of altercations, and I was not impressed with this match.
I feel like that sort of review is very reminiscent of many of these Bloodline story heavy types of matches, in particular like ones that revolve around Solo Sikoa, who I think to this point has still yet to really find a captivating in-ring style as a lead to maybe make these matches a lot more compelling. But that said, you know, I always tend to weigh more on the match's success based off of the crowd reactions. And, you know, while the match was nothing spectacular, I mean, they got some great reactions for every single character, every single interaction, I would say, in this match. When a crowd is really this into the story, I don't think you need to be all that fancy with some of the wrestling. I was surprised by the outcome here because with Jimmy Uso in there, you would expect that he'd be the one to get the pinfall, but instead they had Solo pin Roman Reigns, and I liked it a lot more. You know, like, we know coming out of this match, the goal was probably to make Solo's bloodline look strong heading into War Games. I expected them to pin Jimmy to achieve that, but they went a step further and had Solo pin Roman to achieve it, which I think does a lot more for the entire group than just them pinning Jimmy.
Yeah, so the last people over the past almost 5 years to beat Roman Reigns, we have Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso in that tag match last year, and Thomas Peastock.
Baron Corbin himself.
That's right. Yes. I like the finish too. I think Sikoa needed it the most here. And I mean, this was the most obvious finish for the Bloodline to win this match. And they went with the most impactful one. Like, Roman Reigns being pinned is a significant deal. And afterward, the beatdown continues. They have the numbers advantage. It's 4-on-3 when Sami Zayn's music plays. And Sami Zayn comes out and he's wearing a keffiyeh. And this, you know, his obvious support of Palestinians. And a lot was made of this comment that Corey Graves made, like, post-save about Sami Zayn always taking an opportunity to virtue signal. I mean, I missed it the first time, so I did go back to kind of hear the context.
He said that?
Corey Graves said this, yes. It was after Zayn had made the save. And
okay.
I listened to it. It's like, I feel like you could... If you want to believe that it was in reference to what Sami Zayn was wearing, like, you can make that argument. I think you could also have the plausible deniability that he was trying to refer to the character and how he was virtue signaling here. But
Graves just does not at all seem like the type to, like, be that bold on commentary. Like, to make
sometimes. I mean, there's times he lets his feelings through. Listen, however you interpret it is how you did. But this was a big deal to people. Like, I did see comments about it. That's why I went back to, like, hear it myself, because I missed it in the moment when the line was uttered. But
interesting.
There is a political statement here, of course. But Zayn is out, and he comes in. And they do this long pause as he's eyeing Solo Sikoa. And they did this really well, where Solo extends the arms for a hug. Sammy then extends his arms, and as he goes to hug Sikoa, turns it into an exploder. I really like the way they tease this coming off the conversation in the car on Raw, and attacks them, joins with, assists Reigns and the Usos, but then, with Solo Sikoa surrounded by the four, they have him cornered, and Zayn and Reigns run at Solo for a dual Superman punch / haluva kick. Sikoa gets out of the way, if I had a dime for every time my attacks have been thwarted by this same misdirection and they clobber one another. This was as well timed as you could for. If you were laying this out to someone, there's like, this could look so goofy, and maybe it did a little bit. But anyway, Zayn nails Reigns. So Reigns and Zayn are not on the same page here. Jimmy is upset with Zayn, and Zayn just storms off on his own and leaves. So you're not doing the united front of these four, but that is, you have 4 weeks to get there.
No, there's a lot more storytelling and a lot more TV time that they need to fill before we get there. Yeah, I mean, the timing on that particular spot at the very end with the friendly fire, I mean, I would say they got about maybe 85% of the way there. You know, it's really, really difficult to time.
Very tough.
The replays, don't worry, we'll clean it up perfectly and you'll make it, you know, it'll be seamless. Something I really loved about all this. I mean, this is Roman Reigns now. Not only did he take the pinfall in this match, he also was the one laid out by Sami Zayn at the end of this. And they have this wonderful over-the-shoulder shot of Roman looking completely down in the dumps, reflecting, of course, the Cody Rhodes WrestleMania 39 moment where Roman was in the background and Cody was, you know, this is the story of the hero at his lowest. And it wonderfully sets up, you know, I think Roman Reigns' eventual comeback and return to regaining the tribal chief role. So in terms of storytelling, I think they did a great job overall with all of this. They did a great job of like, you know, emphasizing Jey Uso's ascent to now feeling like somewhat of an equal to Roman Reigns. And they also showed Roman now kind of being at his lowest. So, they have 4 weeks to go. I'm looking forward to all of that storytelling because anytime this new bloodline the original bloodline are together, it's magic. It is. And of course we got Paul Heyman probably somewhere out there as well. If you like this video, consider joining our Patreon, the Post Wrestling Cafe. Multiple bonus podcasts every week, ad-free shows, and access to our full archive. Otherwise, a like and subscribe is much appreciated. Thank you for watching.